Lewis Hamilton's own team may have sabotaged his race in Brazil. What if Ferrari knew the tire strategy would fail and ran it anyway, just on his side of the garage? Today, we reveal the confidential setup files Vasseur tried to bury, and the brutal truth behind Hamilton's retirement. Because what happened in Sao Paulo was not a mistake. It was a message. What if I told you that Lewis Hamilton's retirement in Brazil wasn't just a racing incident, but the product of internal sabotage? Not mechanical failure. Not driver error. A sequence of decisions behind closed doors. Technical procedures that were different between garages. A pattern that had been building for weeks, masked behind setup excuses and tire data. At Interlagos, the cracks split open, and Hamilton's race and reputation took the hit. This was not a coincidence. This was a warning shot. For months, Hamilton had been speaking up. About tire temperatures. About rear-end instability. About inconsistent handling between sessions. And for months, the response was silence. Then, Brazil happened. A race where one side of the garage found grip, pace and top speed, while the other Hamilton side sank into chaos. Rear tires underheated. Car damage in lap 1. And finally, a forced retirement on lap 37. It wasn't just a bad race. It was an implosion. Now imagine this, less than 48 hours later, internal setup files leaked to the press. Documents showing that Ferrari was experimenting with two distinct tire preparation procedures. Same car. Same weather. But Hamilton's tires were handled differently from blanket timing to lap sequence. It confirmed the worst fear of any elite athlete: the problem wasn't you. The problem was the system around you. One that wasn't designed to let you win. One that wasn't even built to let you compete fairly. As the story unfolded, a second explosion hit. Not on track, but in Milan. Ferrari chairman John Elkann stepped into the spotlight at an unrelated Olympic event and threw Hamilton under the bus. Our drivers should talk less and focus on driving. A phrase as sharp as any crash barrier. In the eyes of the public, that message was clear: if you fail in red, it's your fault. Not the car. Not the engineers. You. A 7-time world champion, told to shut up and drive. Hamilton didn't respond with anger. He responded with legacy. I support my team. I support myself. I will never give up. Not now. Not ever. It was more than defiance. It was a statement from a driver who has nothing left to prove except to those who keep moving the goalposts. To those who welcomed him to Ferrari like a savior, and now question his every move. In Brazil, Hamilton did not lose. He was sacrificed. To cover deeper failures. And now, the truth is coming to light. And here's the twist. What happened in Brazil might only be the beginning. The internal politics, the clashing engineering philosophies, and the tension between Hamilton's legacy and Ferrari's hierarchy, this is a powder keg. One that could explode again in Vegas. Or Abu Dhabi. Or behind the garage doors in Maranello, far from the cameras. That's why this story matters. Not just for what it says about one race, but what it says about the future. Because this isn't just about tires. This is about trust. When the numbers started rolling in after qualifying, the contrast was blinding. Charles Leclerc lined up in third on the grid. Fast. Stable. Competitive. But Hamilton? He was back in 13th. No errors in his lap. No yellow flags. Just a car that refused to respond. And the telemetry didn't lie. His rear tires were operating between 4 and 6 degrees Celsius below the optimal window. That's not a small miss, it's a catastrophic failure for qualifying grip. In Formula 1, that temperature gap means the difference between a top 5 start and an early exit from Q2. This wasn't the first time. All season long, Hamilton's side of the garage had struggled with tire heating, especially on the rears. The SF-25 required a perfect thermal balance to unlock performance. Leclerc's crew found that balance. Hamilton's didn't. And the question was no longer why, but how did it happen again? Especially when both cars were supposed to be identical. It got worse in the race. By the end of lap 1, Hamilton had already taken damage to the floor from a brush with Carlos Sainz. Then, trying to defend from Franco Colapinto, he clipped the Alpine and tore off his front wing. The nose went under the car and shredded the carbon underneath. The result? A loss of 35 to 40 points of downforce. To put that in context, in Canada, when Hamilton hit a marmot earlier this year, he lost around 20 points of aero and still fought to 6th place. But in Brazil, the loss was double. The car was skidding, sliding, and snapping on every corner exit. From lap 10 onward, Hamilton was driving a machine that had no business staying on track, let alone scoring points. Still, he kept going. Fighting through the field. Managing a car that wanted to break loose at every apex. But by lap 37, Ferrari made the call: box the car, retire, and save the engine. There was nothing left to fight for. No points. No podium. Just humiliation. The real problem wasn't the crash. It wasn't the contact with Colapinto. It started before the lights went out. The tires. Specifically, the rear tires on Hamilton's SF25 never reached the proper temperature. And this wasn't about a random miscalculation. This was about process the kind done inside a garage, where routine becomes ritual, and ritual becomes risk. Ferrari used two different tire preparation methods in Brazil. That's confirmed. Leclerc's side of the garage followed one protocol: heating blankets applied with tight timing control, precise pressure calibration, and a known outlap target. Hamilton's crew? A different cycle. Slightly different blanket duration. Slightly altered release timing. On paper, both were within spec. In practice, one worked. The other failed. Rear tire temperature is more than just data. It's the foundation for Hamilton's driving style. He brakes late. He rotates the car aggressively. He demands trust from the rear end because that's where he generates corner exit speed. Without rear grip, he doesn't just lose time. He loses the ability to defend, to attack, to race. What's even more damning is that Hamilton had been raising this issue all season. Race after race, he told his engineers the rears weren't coming alive. They said they'd look into it. In Singapore, in Qatar, in Mexico, and still, in Brazil, they arrived with a preparation plan that left him cold literally. It was not a surprise. It was a repeat. Now here's the key detail. Ferrari's tire temperature delta between cars has never been more than 2 degrees, until Brazil. There, it ballooned to over 4 degrees. Enough to make the difference between grip and chaos. Enough to explain why Leclerc qualified third and Hamilton got knocked out in Q2. Just when the situation couldn't get worse, it did. Less than 48 hours after the checkered flag in Brazil, a set of confidential Ferrari technical logs made their way to the Italian press. The documents showed exactly what some insiders feared: Ferrari had run two distinct tire preparation protocols. Not due to experimentation. Not due to technical limitations. But by deliberate design. The justification? Driver-specific adaptation. The result? Catastrophic imbalance. It confirmed what Hamilton's supporters had suspected for months, that the car wasn't just incompatible with his driving style, the operational approach was, too. One garage trusted a model that worked. The other? Treated their 7-time world champion like an open beta test. And then came the knockout punch. Not from the FIA. Not from the media. But from Ferrari's own chairman, John Elkann. Speaking at a corporate event entirely unrelated to F1, Elkann told an audience of Olympic sponsors, "Our drivers should talk less and focus more on driving." The implication was unmistakable. According to Elkann, the mechanics were faultless. The engineers were improving. The car had pace. If results were poor, it must be the drivers. No room for interpretation. No protection for Hamilton. No public unity. It was a message sent loud and clear. Not through the garage. Through the front door of the Ferrari boardroom. Hamilton's response came not with rage, but with resolve. Just hours after Elkann's comments hit the headlines, he posted a single sentence to his millions of followers. "I support my team. I support myself. I will never give up. Not now. Not ever. No blame. No deflection. Just defiance." The kind that made Lewis Hamilton a legend in the first place. Because when a 7-time world champion gets scapegoated by his own chairman, and still chooses unity over bitterness, it speaks volumes. Not about weakness. About integrity. Charles Leclerc also responded subtly but with purpose. His statement after the race wasn't about pace or penalties. It was about one word: unity. "Only together," he said, "can we turn this around." And he made it clear. The fight for second place wasn't over. Not mathematically. Not mentally. That choice of language wasn't accidental. Elkann had praised Ferrari's WEC team for their unity just hours earlier while implying the F1 team lacked it. Leclerc's reply, read carefully, was not passive. It was a direct message to the top floor of Maranello.